Chapter 16, Into the Spotlight. The weeks leading up to the charity gala were a whirlwind of preparation, both for the event and for the emotional journey Grace knew she was about to embark on. The invitation to the Hayes family gala had been a significant turning point, one that marked the beginning of a new chapter in her relationship with Simon. It was an opportunity to see his world up close, a world that had previously been hidden from her, one filled with wealth, power, and influence. As the day of the gala drew nearer, Grace found herself filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. She was stepping into unfamiliar territory, and the stakes felt higher than ever. But despite her fears, there was also a growing sense of determination. Grace had spent her life building her own path, facing down challenges with resilience and strength. This was no different, just another challenge to overcome. The day of the gala. On the day of the gala, Grace found herself standing in front of the mirror, smoothing down the sleek, emerald green gown she had chosen for the evening. The dress was elegant and understated, reflecting her personal style while also fitting the grandeur of the occasion. She had taken extra care with her appearance, wanting to present herself confidently, despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. Simon arrived at her door that evening, looking dashing in a classic black tuxedo. When he saw her, his eyes widened with admiration. "Grace, you look absolutely stunning," he said, his voice filled with genuine awe. A blush crept up Grace's cheeks as she smiled at him. "Thank you, Simon. You don't look so bad yourself." He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "I know tonight might be overwhelming, but I want you to know how much it means to me that you're coming with me. We'll face whatever comes together." Grace nodded, squeezing his hands. "I'm ready. Let's do this." The gala. As they arrived at the grand venue, Grace couldn't help but feel a surge of anxiety. The entrance to the gala was a spectacle in itself, with luxury cars pulling up one after another, releasing impeccably dressed guests onto the red carpet that led into the opulent building. Photographers snapped photos, and the sound of chatter and laughter filled the air. Simon guided Grace inside, his hand resting gently on the small of her back. The interior of the venue was breathtaking, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the elegantly decorated space. Guests mingled, holding glasses of champagne as they engaged in lively conversation. Almost immediately, Grace felt the weight of curious eyes upon her. She could sense the whispers, the subtle glances as people took note of her presence by Simon's side. It was clear that she was an outsider in this world, and the realization made her feel more vulnerable than ever. But Simon remained a steady presence at her side, introducing her to several influential guests with warmth and confidence. "This is Grace," he would say, his tone filled with pride, "the woman who has changed my life in ways I can't even begin to describe." Each time, Grace felt a little more at ease, though the lingering doubt about whether she truly belonged here never completely faded. Still, she held her head high, determined to show the same strength and grace that had carried her through life's many challenges. A familiar face. As the evening progressed, Grace found herself speaking with Michael, who had also been invited to the gala due to his family's connections with the Hayes. They stood near the edge of the room, away from the main crowd, catching up on the events of the past few weeks. "Grace, you're handling all of this incredibly well," Michael remarked, his tone appreciative. "This world can be daunting, but you're more than holding your own." Grace smiled faintly, grateful for the support. "Thank you, Michael. It's not easy, but I'm trying my best." Michael's expression grew more serious. "And Simon? How are things between the two of you?" A soft sigh escaped Grace's lips as she glanced across the room, where Simon was deep in conversation with a group of business associates. "We're good, better than I expected, actually. But there's still this part of me that wonders if I'm enough, if I can really fit into his world." Michael placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Grace, you've built something incredible with your own two hands. That's worth more than any amount of wealth or status. Simon sees that in you, and so do I. Don't let this world intimidate you, you have every right to be here." Grace's heart swelled with gratitude for Michael's words. "Thank you, Michael. I needed to hear that." An unexpected encounter. As the evening drew on, Grace found herself at the center of a conversation with a small group of guests when an older gentleman approached, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. Simon, who had rejoined Grace's side, stiffened slightly as the man approached, but he quickly masked his reaction with a polite smile. "Simon," the man greeted warmly, his voice carrying the weight of years of experience and authority. "I've been looking forward to meeting this lovely lady you brought with you tonight." "Mr. Hayes," Simon responded, his tone respectful, but slightly reserved. "This is Grace." "Grace, this is my father." Grace's breath caught in her throat. Of all the people she had expected to meet tonight, Simon's father was not one of them. She had known that his family would be present, but she hadn't anticipated such a direct encounter. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hayes," Grace managed to say, extending her hand. Mr. Hayes took her hand in a firm, yet gentle grip, his eyes studying her closely. "The pleasure is mine, Grace. I've heard much about you from Simon." Grace's heart pounded as she searched for the right words. "I hope it's all good," she said, her tone light, though her nerves were anything but. Mr. Hayes chuckled, a sound that was surprisingly warm. "Indeed, it is. Simon speaks very highly of you. I must say, I'm impressed by what I've heard." Grace could feel Simon's gaze on her, a silent source of strength as she navigated this unexpected conversation. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. He's been wonderful." The older man nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I'm glad to hear that. Simon has always been a bit of a mystery, even to me at times. But it's clear that you've had a positive impact on him." "I can see that much." Grace didn't know how to respond, so she simply smiled and nodded, hoping it conveyed the right amount of gratitude and respect. The aftermath. As the evening wound down, Grace and Simon made their way out of the venue, the cool night air a welcome relief after the intensity of the gala. They walked in silence for a few moments, the weight of the evening settling over them. Simon finally broke the silence, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "I'm sorry if that was overwhelming, Grace. I didn't expect my father to approach us like that." Grace shook her head, her expression thoughtful. "It's okay, Simon. It was a lot to take in, but I think it went well." Simon stopped walking, turning to face her. "You were incredible tonight, Grace. I know this world isn't easy to step into, but you handled it with grace and strength. I'm so proud of you." Grace felt a warmth spread through her at his words, her earlier doubts fading away in the face of his unwavering support. "Thank you, Simon. I was nervous, but I realized something tonight." "What's that?" Simon asked, his eyes searching hers. Grace took a deep breath, her voice steady as she spoke. "I realized that I do belong with you, Simon. No matter how different our worlds might seem, what matters is how we feel about each other. And I'm ready to take this next step with you, whatever that might be." Simon's eyes softened with emotion as he reached out to pull her into a tender embrace. "I love you, Grace," he whispered into her ear, his voice filled with sincerity. "And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you always feel that way." Grace closed her eyes, resting her head against his chest, the sound of his heartbeat steady and reassuring. "I love you too, Simon," she murmured, her heart finally at peace. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the city lights twinkling around them, Grace knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger and more united than ever before. Click follow for the next chapters.